Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching Newsnight. Now, it's been a week since the government announced an increase in electricity tariffs for some Nigerians in urban areas. Now, that decision has been met with lots of controversy, but the government has doubled down, saying it's part of plans to migrate to a cost-reflective tariff. Yes, that again, cost-reflective tariff regime. Well, the electricity distribution companies are under scrutiny as consumers query the validity of their band grouping. We're joined now by the spokesman for electricity distribution companies, Sunday Oduntan. Thank you very much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you on Newsnight.
Thank you very much.
So let's start with the recent headlines that DisCos that you represent have been making a lot of profit. In 2023 alone, you made 1 trillion naira, in spite of the fact that there's been epileptic electricity, grid collapses, and all of that. How come? Yes, how come you're smiling or laughing to the banks for that matter?
Thank you very much, Ngozi. First of all, let me confirm to all Nigerians, and this they can check very easily on the website of our regulator. There is no DisCos in Nigeria that has made 1 naira profit since 2013 November. Let me repeat.
I'm talking about 1 trillion, trillion naira.
Yes, what you saw and what you're talking about is the money that were collected by the DisCos. And let me put it in content. If you are doing a business, let me give you the example of a DisCos. A particular DisCos 2 months ago bought energy worth of 12 billion. And at the end of the month, that was last month, they collected 8 billion. When Arise TV and others hear 8 billion collected by BEDC, they will say, oh, that's a lot of money. What they did not report.
When you say collected, let's get it clear.
When I give you a bill or,
or
you vend, you buy credit on your prepaid meter, all the money represent collection at the end of the month. But what I'm saying is that I'm a distributor of electricity. I'm buying it to sell to customers. And what I'm buying, since 2013, there has never been any 100% collection. So I put 10 billion naira worth of electricity into your neighborhood or a state or into my franchise area, and at the end of the day, I was only able to collect 40% of it. What has happened over the years is there has been an increase in our collection efficiency, in our ability to collect. But up till now, we have not been able to collect 100%. So when people talk about profit should be when you collect 100%. Profit should also be when you're talking about the tariff, the money that people pay. What is the cost of production? If what people are paying covers the cost of production and there's a top-up, that is what is called profit.
Are you saying,
so when you have billions,
DisCos have not made any profit since 2013 when
no profit.
The electricity sector was privatized?
Correct. I joined the Nigerian. I came from England to join the Nigerian power sector on the 1st of November 2013. At the point of privatization, I was the chief legal advisor then and company secretary at Ibadan Electricity Distribution Company. So I've been around long enough to tell anyone the story of this sector. What I'm saying is that no profit.
So what's responsible for that? Because a lot has been said about metering, that the metering is at the core of the issue of electricity in Nigeria, and maybe that's linked to why you may not be making profit. In fact, some say that DisCos would rather have, customers unmetered because you make your profit from there.
No, we make more losses from customers unmetered. The issue of metering, let me explain. One, meter is an instrument of measurement that enables the distribution companies to also be able to account for the energy and then get their revenue. But what happened is that we had a situation one time as at 2016 when about 40% of meters were bypassed by the customers. So even those who are metered also get involved in energy theft. Those who are unmetered, we have many customers who are involved in illegal connection and all the sorts. So the rate of energy theft has gone up so much. And that is part of the problem why we have the current liquidity crisis. So meter is very essential. Meter is very good. We need to have meters. In fact, every customer ought to be metered.
So why are the meters not
and the issue
available?
of the meter is not. Number one, let me again make it clear to Nigerians that the DisCos are not the ones supplying meters. We are not the one in charge of meters. What we have is we have third-party meter asset providers. Right. These are meter manufacturers, meter suppliers that are licensed by a regulator to supply meter. But they also have their own problem, because for every meter that's manufactured in this country, or the meter that are imported into Nigeria, those that are assembled here, they still have to buy some component from abroad. So there's a foreign exchange component to this business of metering. And when these meter suppliers, when they bring in their meters, the regulator by law are the one that fix the cost of meters. And they do that, and our regulators are working very hard. It's a difficult job because they have to maintain a balance between making things easy for Nigerians, the customers, and at the same time ensuring that the businessmen doing this business, the meter manufacturers, are able to cover their costs. As at tonight, no meter manufacturer has been able to cover their costs. In the last few months, they stopped metering. They stopped engaging in this business because they are telling the regulator that, look, this is the exchange rate, because the exchange rate has affected it. So the cost of meter has gone up because of the exchange rate. I don't speak for them, but this thing affects all of us, and we all have to know that we all have to play our part. It is not an easy thing. And let me say...
Very quickly, I mean, because we really don't have that much time. Okay. So we need to maximize the little time we have. On the issue of, back to the issue of privatization and whether or not DisCos have made any profit. Let's hear from Joe Ajero, the president of the Nigeria Labour Congress. Hear what he has to say, and I'll get your reaction to that.
There was an arrangement to give the sector to some individuals through proxies. Those individuals took money from Nigerian banks and say that they have taken over the power sector. 3 planks. There must be technical competence, managerial ability, and FDI, foreign direct investment. No one couple came into Nigerian economy, and I'm saying it here tomorrow, by virtue of the privatization of electricity in the country. Now, sooner than they take over, we started experiencing both liquidity problem and crisis in those companies. 80% of the so-called privatized companies have been taken over by the banks. Abuja here, Benin, Ibadan, almost all. Now, this shows you that that's why and the banks are managing the power sector. They don't have the competence. The banks that took over the power sector are the people running it.
You heard that?
Yes.
Your reaction. Number one, first off, he says, look, since the privatization happened, that it was just some proxies that took over, people without any funds to actually finance, the privatization of the electricity sector, the DisCos. And then again, that the banks, the Nigerian banks, are actually the ones running the DisCos right now, and they don't have the competence. Your reaction?
Okay. Joe Ajero is my friend, and he was one of the General Secretary of NUI. That's the Union of Electricity Employees. There's a difference between activism, aluta, and reality.
What's the reality?
The reality is that when they wanted to, Mr. Jonathan, the government of Mr. Jonathan did the privatization. When they wanted to privatize the Nigerian power sector, number one, so many foreigners, foreign businessmen didn't want to invest in Nigeria, and they gave some reasons. 2 of the reasons I will cite. One, they said Nigerian government does not respect the sanctity of contract, so they were afraid. And they said Nigeria was a corrupt country. So it got to a point that it was a group of Nigerian businessmen who, I believe, in my own opinion, out of their own patriotism, who decided to put their money in the sector. That was why you find Nigerians being the investors in the sector. Talking about taking money from the bank, that is not a strange thing. That happens all over the world. There's nothing wrong with that. Talking about bank taking over.
You can't, exactly.
No, borrowing to do business is not a big deal.
No doubt.
How much money will you have to go and buy an asset for over $300 million?
Yes, you can borrow money from the banks.
They did.
Should they be running the sector?
Now saying that the banks took over, I'm sure my friend is talking about the issue of debt, because when you're indebted to the bank, then they may have to take over the asset, okay? That's a different ballgame. What we should be looking at is how come that, okay, you interviewed me about 8 years ago in another station on this same subject matter. And I told you that time, I said, if a house is defective, and we know that this house is about to fall down, and you're saying, what do we do? Somebody now come and say, let's move the furnitures. You change the furnitures around. Does that in any way address the issue of the defect? No, it doesn't.
How do you address the issue? Because we have
go to the structure itself and find out the fundamental. The problem of the power sector started from the very moment this sector was privatized, and it started with the lack of appropriate pricing of the product, lack of what is called cost-reflective tariff. This is the first time.
But one of the arguments being made that Joe Ajero actually made on the day we had that chat is that, look, we need to talk about service-reflective tariff and not just cost-reflective tariff. If the product is not available, how do you talk about cost-reflective tariff?
That is why when the regulator did the hard work of fixing a new tariff, they only went as far as doing it for Band A, those who are receiving an average of 20 to 24 hours of electricity. The service, to that extent, is available to those group of people.
And how has
the other group,
in the last 1 week, how much difference has been made for the Band A? Are they really getting 20 hours of electricity?
Yes, they are. But let me put a clause to it. In the last 2 months, the country as a whole has suffered a lot of lack of electricity. Why? Because the generation company, the producers, were not able to pay the gas suppliers. No gas. And this is what we're saying. If we don't pay the appropriate price below the value chain, there will not be enough money to send upstream for those who are producing the electricity to be able to pay for raw material, in this case, mainly gas. So this is the reason why there has not been enough electricity in Nigeria in the last 2 months. Now, with this new tariff for Band A customers, who are just about 15% of the customers, with this one, I can assure, what they have just done, they just removed the subsidy that was there for them. Why should we be subsidizing a man who uses Rolls Royce and lives in Maitama or Asoko in Abuja? So what they've done is simply to say, okay, we give you the service, but you have to pay the appropriate price. For all the others, government is still subsidizing, though, and we should know that what they have done now is to say, okay, Band A, as long as you can give them between 20 and 24, and when we say 20 hours, it's on average. People think 20 hours every day non-stop, 24 hours non-stop. We are not there yet. On average, in a month, you have 20 to 24 hours of supply. And there are people having that.
Right. The Prime Minister recently, I mean, you had an interface with him, and he threatened to withdraw licenses of DisCos because you're not living up to expectation.
I'm not going to be involved in the political talk.
You think it's political talk?
That's political.
From the minister?
And I'll tell you why it is political.
Yeah, very quickly.
No disrespect to the minister. I was in this sector, and I've been in this sector, and I'm still here, when the privatization occurred, and so many media houses, including this Arise TV, are saying, take their license, send them away. And at a point, the last government did, to some of the investors. Tell me the difference that has happened. So you send away people, you take licenses, the problem is still there. What that tells you is that there's a fundamental issue that needs to be dealt with. Nobody can be underselling a product without cutting corner. That is the honest truth.
Right. So cost reflective tariff is the issue. We'll have to say thank you very much for joining us, Otumba Sunday Oduntan, the spokesperson for the DisCos electricity distributors in Nigeria.